Before we dive in, let me leave you with a truth that echoes across every chapter in human history. Nothing we are began in silence. Every civilization, every story, every ancestor left a trail of wisdom waiting to be rediscovered. What you are about to hear is a part of a legacy, preserved, decoded, and brought back to the forefront. I'm OG Mooney. Welcome to AI Legacy Lab.
Dick Gregory's story starts long before the spotlight ever found him. He was born into the deep poverty of St. Louis, a world where just surviving felt like a full-time job and dreams seemed too expensive to even afford. But Gregory discovered something powerful early on: humor. He realized that a joke could slice through pain, expose a raw truth, and challenge the world in ways a speech never could. So when he stepped onto a comedy stage for the first time, he wasn't just telling jokes. He was weaponizing laughter. He was turning it into a giant, unflinching mirror that America couldn't turn away from. He rose to fame during the Civil Rights era, arguably the most dangerous time in modern history to be a black man with an opinion. Yet, in that hostile, he didn't just break into the mainstream. He kicked the door down. He became one of the first black comedians to sit on the couch of major talk shows, not as a caricature, but as a sharp, unapologetic social critic who made audiences laugh and think at the same time. He shattered the unwritten rule that a black comic could only joke about himself for white audiences. Instead, Gregory turned the joke around, aiming it squarely at the absurdity of racism and segregation. But as his fame skyrocketed, Gregory started to see comedy differently. It wasn't the final destination. It was a doorway, and he walked straight through it into the heart of activism, transforming himself from an entertainer into a full-time truth-teller with no off switch. He wasn't just commenting on the movement from a safe distance. He was in it. He marched alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He supported Medgar Evers, and he spoke out relentlessly against. He called out every injustice America tried to sweep under the rug. Think about that for a second. While other celebrities were careful, Gregory risked everything. He put his money, his fame, and even his personal safety on the line to stand on the front lines of the struggle. His schedule went from sold-out comedy shows to grueling hunger strikes. He went from primetime television appearances to being placed on government watch lists. For Dick Gregory, freedom wasn't some abstract idea you talked about at dinner parties. It was a lifelong bare-knuckle fight, and he was all in. The deeper he dove into activism, the more controversial he became. Gregory refused to sugarcoat anything. He didn't care about making people comfortable. He cared about waking them up. He challenged presidents directly. He exposed corrupt systems, and he called out hypocrisy wherever he saw it. Whether it was he pushed conversations into uncomfortable places America just wasn't ready to go. Because of this, people had strong opinions about him. Some called him crazy, others called him a prophet, and many in power were absolutely terrified of him, because he told the truth so loudly and so consistently that it was impossible to ignore. His analysis went beyond just race. He started talking about conspiracies, hidden power structures, and the spiritual war he believed was happening underneath all the politics. He was one of the first public figures to talk about the manipulation of the food supply, the media, and our very health. Long before it became a wellness trend, Gregory was a pioneer in health and nutrition. He advocated for fasting, vegetarianism, and clean living, not just for personal health, but as a form of political and spiritual resistance. He saw the body as both a temple and a weapon. By controlling what you put into it, he once famously went on a hunger strike that lasted for years, drinking only fruit juice. To protest the Vietnam War, people thought he was insane, but for him, it was the ultimate act of commitment. He didn't care what the critics thought. He only cared what the truth demanded of him. As the years went on, Gregory evolved again. He became something even more powerful than a comedian or an activist. He became an elder, a wise, seasoned storyteller, a man who had survived every. You could find him appearing at colleges, community rallies, small meetings, and in countless interviews anywhere someone was willing to listen. His voice may have aged, but his message only grew sharper and more urgent. He became a guide for younger generations of activists and thinkers. He'd remind them that the system they were fighting was older, deeper, and more calculated than they could possibly imagine. But in the same breath, he would remind them of their own immense power, their rich history of resistance, and their absolute obligation to think beyond the surface, to question everything they were told. Dick Gregory never wanted followers. He wanted thinkers. He wanted people to arm themselves with knowledge. In the end, Dick Gregory's legacy is too big to fit into a single box. It's bigger than comedy, bigger than activism, and bigger than controversy. He was one of the first black performers to shatter racial barriers in mainstream entertainment. He was one of the loudest and most courageous voices of the civil rights movement. And he was one of the most relentless, unapologetic truth seekers of the modern age. His entire life serves as a blueprint for courage. It teaches us to speak up, even when our voice shakes. To stand up for what's right, even if we have to stand alone. To be willing to sacrifice for our principles. And to never ever compromise with lies. Dick Gregory showed the world that the truth is often uncomfortable, it's messy, and it can be dangerous. But above all, it is necessary. And whether people loved him or hated him, they all had to admit one thing. Dick Gregory was right far more often than America was ready for. Today, his voice still echoes in our culture. His warnings still feel incredibly relevant. And his legacy continues to teach us the most important lesson of all. A free mind is the most powerful weapon you will ever have. Thank you for watching. If you found value in this story, please like this video and subscribe for more content that challenges you to think deeper.
Another chapter reclaimed, another piece of history placed back where it belongs. If you have found any meaning in this, let it sit with you. Let it sharpen your vision, not just for the past, but for who we are becoming. I'm OG Mooney, and this is AI Legacy Lab. Honoring truth, protecting legacy, one story at a time. Until next time, stay curious.